It's been said that the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you find out why. Welcome to the second day, a special mini season of Willing to Win. 5 interrelated shows, all focused on helping you, your family, and friends begin doing things you've always wanted to do and keep the momentum going long after you start. There is nothing to buy. No new age gimmicks. No one will ask you to chant or walk on hot coals. Just hard science and hard work. All things you can do today for free. Join us as we pay it forward with Willing to Win, second day. I'm Dr. Jeff Kaplan, and for over 30 years I've traveled the globe from Dubai to Moscow and Johannesburg, from Singapore to Shanghai and Istanbul. I've studied the world's best businesses and the people that run them. But something is very different now. From the boardroom to the break room, there's a growing realization that our relationship with work is broken. But it's not too late. You still have a choice. Hold on to the past and struggle to survive, or join the willing, change, and thrive in the world of tomorrow that's already arrived. So if you're willing to think different, willing to work different, willing to change at the speed of now, then you're willing to win. Welcome to Willing to Win. I'm Jeff Kaplan.
And I'm Tara Thomas-Kettman. This is fun. We're doing a mini season, but it's great 5 practical steps broken up over these 5 episodes that you can apply now to move forward and not just let another New Year's resolution go by the wayside.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually giving some teeth, to the whole idea of having next year be better than this year, right? And taking charge of that. And in our first episode, we asked a really challenging question, and that was, or we gave a really big challenge to our audience, and that was to simply go and write a paragraph of describing what you want your future to be. So it was really...
Yeah, so the whole premise was know you matter. That's step 1. And now we're moving into people plan, allowing others to help as the next simple step. It does seem simple, right? People, the connections, the relationships that we have and that we make on the job, in our personal life. However, there are ways we can leverage these relationships through a people plan that no one's necessarily applied, and you have that easy strategy that they can begin to do. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, this dates back, some 15 years when I was working with my old partner, Keith Ferrazzi, and he wrote his book, Never Eat Alone. What we did is we examined the top 0.1% of wage earners to find out what they were doing differently. Because, from that metric, making money, from that one metric alone, we wanted to see if there was something different about their backgrounds. Did they go to the right schools? Did they have family money? What was that thing that was, gave them the leg up? And interestingly, we found none of that stuff applied. What was consistent is that they did something different. Instead of asking what they needed to do, they approached solving problems by asking a much better question. Who did they need to engage with? Who did they need to develop a relationship with to become successsul? And this may sound like something that's, like a motivational thing or whatever, but there's hard science behind it. So don't take my word for it. You can think of a study that was done by MIT and replicated by IBM, where they actually examined the value of people's network, their contacts. And what they found was that for every single person that you know and that knows you, knows what you're about, what you want. Like we're going to use that paragraph we did from the last episode, knows what your future is that you want, and is willing to act on your behalf. For every person like that you know, it's worth about $948 of net worth. So if you want to be a millionaire, let's say that's your goal. I just want to be a millionaire. Go make 1,000 friends. Now granted, do the math, you only come up with $948,000, but we'll leave the last 52 grand to you. But that is the way to do it. That's the power of relationships.
It's a crazy statistic, but such a good point, because there is value, almost tangible value, behind these people that make up the relationships that many of us probably don't leverage to our advantage when they're a phone call, a text, a coffee away from changing our life.
Absolutely, right? And that just is such a great lead in to the interview you did, which I thought was fantastic, right? The interview today is about someone who was a professional football player who realized he was not going to be making this level of income, after his football career. And they're notoriously short careers. 4 years is the average in pro sports, right? So he starts investing, and others see him, they believe in him, they know what he wants to create an investment firm post his professional career, and they flocked him. And it's just, gee, it had to be you, success after success.
He is an incredible guy, Don Davey, former Green Bay Packer and Jacksonville Jaguar, and he, not realizing it, was executing your people plan strategy, and here's how he did it. Let's take a listen.
I grew up in a family of five, pretty middle-class family, living in a small town in Wisconsin, and 4 boys and 1 girl, and so like most households with boys, we were pretty rambunctious and played sports all the time. And the one thing my mom and dad always made clear is, hey, listen, guys, you love sports. That's great. You can play all the sports you want, but you have to take care of your grades first, because the minute your grades start slipping, we're going to take sports away from you. So it was a great incentive because we love sports so much that it's like, you know what, if I love sports, I better bust my ass in the classroom too. Otherwise, mom and dad are going to take away sports from me. And so all of us, we were all good students growing up, and we all took school very seriously. I ended up being valedictorian in my senior class in high school. Was a pretty good football player. I got offered a scholarship to go to University of Wisconsin to play for the Badgers and study engineering. And it was kind of a dream come true. And then from there, I did the same thing in college I did growing up, right? And so I put school first, and I told my coaches if I had a lab I had to go to, or if I had to miss practice, or if I had to miss a workout, school was always my priority. And to their credit, my coaches were always very supportive at Wisconsin, and said, listen, we truly do believe, unlike some other places, that you guys are student athletes. So I ended up getting a master's degree in mechanical engineering, had a 3.8 GPA all the way through college. And it was funny because I got a lot of notoriety. Sports Illustrated did an article on it. ESPN did a feature on that. Hey, here's this all Big Ten football player who's also studying engineering, is also getting straight A's. But to me, it was nothing different than I had done my whole life. And like I say, that was the expectation in our house. And I'm grateful for that from my parents, that they kind of set that bar very high from an early stage. And I just continued those habits all the way through grade school, high school, and then through college. And it worked out really well for me.
That's great. What is it about you after your pro career, after your college achievements, that helped you connect with others to be successful professionally? What is your people plan, if you will? That's what we're calling it, that you executed to be able to live out your professional dreams beyond your football career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always tell people, because from Wisconsin, I got drafted by the Packers and ended up playing there for 5 years, and then signed here with the Jaguars and then played for the Jaguars for 5 more years. So I ended up having a 10-year professional football career as well. And I was one of those guys that I said, listen, I don't know how long this NFL thing's going to last. It could last a week. It could last a month. It could last a year. In the NFL, you can get hurt at any time. So you just don't know. And so given that, I'm going to maximize my opportunities. I tell guys now that, listen, when you're in the NFL, you can have lunch with the mayor, you can meet the governor, you can meet all the leaders of industry in your city. It's really easy door opener to get you inside circles to help you after your career. And so I was always very cognizant of that and took advantage of that. I volunteered and I spoke at schools and I spoke at the Lions Club and I spoke at churches and I went to the networking events. And sure enough, during one of those, in my time with the Jaguars, I met the founders of Firehouse Subs, Rob and Chris Sorensen. They were 2 local firefighters that started this sub chain here in Jacksonville. I met them early on in the process when they just had a couple of restaurants. We stayed connections. We stayed friends. By the time I got done playing with the Jaguars, they were ready to start franchising, and I bought the development rights for Orlando. That's kind of blossomed into, we're now the largest Firehouse Subs franchisee in the country. We own 13 locations in Orlando and another 21 up in Wisconsin, 34 restaurants. And the genesis of that was simply getting out and meeting people, just taking advantage of my notoriety as a Jaguar football player to get out in the community, meet other business leaders, and to try to plant some seeds for life after the football.
That's great. And congratulations on your success with Firehouse Subs. In our franchise book that you were featured in, Live It to Own It, we talk about how there are people and stories behind every storefront, and those that sort of really forge the relationships as you have in the communities where you open these franchise units. Why is it important for you to have that, character and professional reputation for being somebody who is seen as a community servant and not somebody who's, a bad businessman trying to take advantage of people? Talk a little bit about that moral and ethical component of your work.
Well, what I love about that, first of all, that's a great point you make. And but what I love is that, baked into the DNA of Firehouse Subs, and what really attracted me to the brand in the first place is giving back to the community where we do business. Okay, from day one, Robin and Chris, they were local kids here in Jacksonville, grew up, they were firefighters. And when they opened that very first restaurant, it's like, hey, listen, we owe a lot to the city. We're going to give back to the community. But what I love about that, so that's been baked into our DNA from day one. Every restaurant we've opened, we've got the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. We've given away over $60 million worth of life-saving equipment to police and firefighters around the country, all in the communities where we do business. But what I love about that is that's good for business. It's the right thing to do, but it's also good for business as well. Think about it. When you go to your local Firehouse Subs, and we have a place there where you can either round up or you can donate our canisters to our Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. And every penny that goes into that jar is eventually going to be given away to your local police and fire departments. You're keeping yourself and your family safe, right? I mean, me as a customer, when I go into Firehouse Subs and I make a donation, I think, you know what? This is going to buy a Jaws of Life, or it's going to buy a bulletproof vest, or it's going to invest in a new fire truck that, God forbid, someday my house starts on fire. The guys entrusted to keep our community safe are going to be better equipped to come save my kids from a burning fire. So as a customer, it's good for me to do this. And for me as a business owner, it's good for me to give that opportunity to the local community to keep their own selves and their own families safe.
He knew, Don, as you described, that professional football, has an expiration date. So during that time, the relationships that he built through being such a high-profile person led him to now be a successful businessman today. So putting that people plan into place is going to look different for us because we're not all professional athletes, but it's the same simple concept.
Yeah, and it can be really simple. We spent about the last 15 years or so working in universities. We try to give back and go and take some of this content into the universities. And one of the things is I tell students, I challenge them, what is your ideal career? Sure, you may be studying for, this particular career or that particular career, but what do you want? And how can you meld your technical expertise with what your dream is? And I will tell you, there was one young man, and his name was Trent Schroeder, and he was studying to become an accountant, and I think he is an accountant today, but his dream was to develop a business or a side business where he was able to be a craftsman, somebody who, built furniture, built, wood, made things from wood with his hands. And that was really his dream. And I asked him, I said, well, you should go out and try to create that. He goes, how would I do that? He said, how would I do that? I said, well, who do you admire, right? First thing I ask is not what we need to do, but who is somebody that you might emulate? And he said, well, Jeff, do you know that show, what is it, with the husband and wife?
Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Yeah, that show, the home improvement show. There's a third character on there, Clint Harp. And Clint comes in to the place they're reclaiming. He takes out the wood. He uses the wood they've taken out of the house to make furniture that goes back in the house. It's a really cool thing. That's his dream. And I said, well, what would you say to him, if you had a chance to meet with him? And he goes, chance to meet with him. I said, trust me, let's go through the exercise. So we went through, we had a few phone calls, and we created a list of things that he would ask him. And I said, great, now let's go ahead and send that to him. He goes, what do you mean? I said, we can find his email. So I showed him how to find the email. We sent the email out, and I got a call a few weeks later saying, Jeff, I just had the best FaceTime call. It wasn't even a phone call.
That's
Best
so
FaceTime
cool.
call with Clint Harp, who was interested, wanted pictures of some of the stuff that Trent had done, and got a chance to get some mentorship from somebody that was his dream, who, until he did that, was this other thing that he could never touch or was never real, right? And all of a sudden, it was real right there in front of him, having that dialogue.
And you were the catalyst to get him to reach out to that one person who, in this case, was a pseudo-celebrity, but took the time to make a connection that led to him actually living out his dream. If you're watching this video podcast, he did some of the word work in your own studio.
Yes, absolutely. So this installation was actually built by him, custom made, because I wanted to show him I believed in him, right? So we actually did that, and then had some other things done in the house as well to help him get his business going. And I think in the end, even though I was trying to help someone else, I got a great deal out of it because it's beautiful craftsmanship that'll be part of our family forever.
Well, I love that. And that's the key, right? He's passionate about his work, so he takes so much pride in it. No question, the product, the quality is going to be superior. If you can't see us because you're listening on the radio, you can check out this woodwork that we're talking about that's custom made in the studio by going to our website, willingtowin.org, win.org, talking about people plan, allowing others to help. Perhaps in the education field, we are now seeing more than ever the value of these relationships, because when everything went remote, when we have a lot of now virtual learning, administrators are now struggling to reconnect with students, to have that meaningful engagement so that this teacher burnout factor doesn't continue to implode. We caught up with a superintendent who's also put some of his lessons into a new book to hear more about how he took a people plan and made it effectively work in his career.
Well, thanks for joining us, Dr. Jared Smith. He is a superintendent in the Midwest and a recent author, as well as somebody I would call a thought leader in educational circles, because you're really putting a lot of your insight from your on-the-job experience out there to engage with others. So welcome to the program, and tell us a little bit about your journey into ultimately administration.
Well, thanks, Tara, for having me. I'm excited to be here today, and my journey to leadership with I think a lot of people would say the same thing. They start off as a teacher, and they don't know they want to go into school administration, but something along the way inspires them and maybe makes them think about, oh, okay, I could do that. And for me, it was like just seeing some things as a teacher that if I was in that role, man, I would like to do that a little bit differently. Not a knock on those people, but just some things in education that I've seen that have been a little frustrating at times. And so I've been an assistant principal at the middle school level, assistant principal at the high school level, high school principal, and now superintendent. And I'm really, really enjoying this role.
I think it's interesting that in your doctoral work, you really studied more about the relationship, the emotional side between students and educators. Talk a little bit about how those relationships are so critical to set the students up ultimately for academic success.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in leadership, I hope you understand at this point that relationships are the key to engaging with students. You could have the greatest lesson in the world. You could know all the content in the world for your subject area. But if you don't have relationships, now more than ever, it just doesn't matter. The dissertation, the doctoral work, I really wanted to pinpoint what it was that set like the outstanding teachers apart from the rest. And, I interviewed recent high school graduates. So they were college age students. And I guarantee they never read some of the the seminal work in educational leadership, but they could have written those books. They were saying exactly what some of the experts in our fields were saying about what matters in education, and that was those relationships.
So yeah, great to hear from an educator, because as we both know, having family members who have been in education, you admire somebody who's in a career where it's really all about serving young people.
Yeah, and it happens every day. The whole idea of a people plan happens naturally, but what we want to do is make it so that when it's natural, we sometimes think it's serendipity, it's fate. We look back on it, right? But what if we could take control of fate? What if we could make serendipity purposeful so that the outcomes that we know come out of serendipity are things that we can produce, right? We want to do that. That's what makes, an absolutely great career. And when you think about it, I think it's really an important investment. And, we talked a little bit about career development at the beginning of season 1. And in that, I mentioned that, your commitment to work is a big one, right? You're going to be there for 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year for ostensibly 40 years of your life. If you do the math, it's over 83,000 hours that you're going to be committed to this thing called work, right? And you go to school for 10,000 hours to train for this 83,000 hour commitment, right? So, that is a big commitment. So I ask you this, if that's what you're doing on the technical side of your life, how much time are you spending planning the rest of it, right? We do diet plans, we do exercise plans, we do study plans, we do financial plans. What you need is a people plan, a plan that says, these are the people that I'm going to try to engage with to create the future of my dreams and also help, because it's mutual support for mutual success. We're not talking about taking, we're talking about getting a relationship where we help as much as we take.
Absolutely. And this is such a great message, especially coming into the new year, because as we know from the past year, we've seen record numbers of job changes, or in many cases, college graduates or, those who have now completed a new degree sort of delaying, okay, how am I going to apply this? What's the next step? And like you said, don't just jump into that first job that comes across your lap or that you Google on the internet. Make sure you have a person or a relationship behind that next opportunity so you can be sure it's the right fit. So tell us an action step that we can take to really align with this week's episode or this next step in the people plan, allowing others to help.
Well, the first thing I just want to say is there is one rule with a people plan. I just want to make sure everybody knows one rule.
Okay.
And that is build it before you need it, right? So if you are trying to look for a job, you can use a people plan to make you more successful, no question. But it would be better to build it a year before. So if you're a college student and you're listening to this, podcast, and you're a freshman, now's the time to start building your people plan. If you want to get to that next promotion or you want that next job, and it may be a year or two off, now is the time. Build your network before you need it, because it does take time. So this week's challenge is, when it comes to the people plan, is to really, get in the mindset of allowing other people to help, and then write a simple list. Who are 10 people that could help you become successful? Looking at week number 1, you wrote out your, paragraph, said, this is my future. Who are the 10 people that could help you? Now, one thing I will mention about that, sometimes we may not even know that person. That's okay. And we'll figure out a way to try to get that introduction. Sometimes we may not even know who the person is, just what their role is. Like, I want to write a best-selling book. Okay, I need an agent, I need publishers, I need booksellers, I should meet editors, I should meet other writers. In that case, that's the beginning of a great people plan.
Absolutely.
Right? We actually used it a few years ago with Who's Got Your Back, right? We actually sat down with a people plan and did that, and we had blanks like that where we just did, the labels, and then we said, okay, who are the writers? How do we search and find out who they would be? And then go and actually do it. You will be amazed at the response that you get.
2 examples that come to mind where I applied a people plan in my life. You were my neighbor, and now I work with you. So you never know who's in your midst at that ugly sweater party that might be somebody that you have an incredible future collaboration with. And we reconnected with one of my grade school cheerleading buddies to actually help leverage some opportunities and all the research that we've been part of in our work. So you just never know. And through social media, you can reconnect with somebody from your past and find out, you know what? They're doing work, they have a career path that might align with your own interests. So like you said, don't be shy about reaching out. And I love that example of the guy reaching out to, somebody he thought was unattainable, because turns out not everybody thinks they're too important to give you the time of day.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to remember too that, when it comes to like our natural selves, when you meet somebody and it's in a sales situation, a professional situation, their first reaction is to be on guard, right? Thousands of years ago, you may have been a predator, come to kill me or kill my family. I'm going to be wary of you. And that sort of still exists today. But if you've already built the relationship up where you know who the person is, you know what they're about, and you care about them, then the conversation's entirely different. It's basically, okay, you need something, how can I help you? Because that's what I want to do.
Exactly. That uncomfortable wall has been broken down. Well, we're so excited that you're going to be part of taking this next step. This is step 2 in our 5-step plan for a brand new year and new you, and how you can really take these 5 simple steps to move your life and your career forward. So step 1, know you matter. If you missed that episode, you can check it out on our website, willingtowin.org. That's win.org. Today, our second step in our mini series is people plan, allow others to help. And like Jeff said, just identify those 10 people, those critical relationships that are individuals who believe in you and who have, that guidance and support to help you move forward. Tell us the other steps so we can preview what's to come.
Okay, in our next step, we're going to be talking about creating your winner circle. And a winner circle is an opportunity for you to develop some very specific relationships to create mutual support for mutual success. It's almost like your personal board of directors. That's going to be a great episode. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how to create your personal brand in episode number 4. And then in the final episode, we're going to be talking about the world's best sellers, people that have learned to sell their story to get other people excited about working with them and create a shared vision rather than selling products and services. And that will wrap it all together. If you use these tools over this holiday season, you will have a much better chance of achieving your dreams in the new year.
That's so exciting. Thanks for joining us for Willing to Win. We'll see you soon. Willing to Win is produced by Lift Productions. Guests on the program are not compensated, nor is their appearance representative of the Willing to Win views. Willing to Win does not necessarily endorse any people, products, or services.